Underway. If is this working? Yeah. All right. We're going to get this hearing underway. Mr. Representative Mako, Congressman, come on. All right. You want to lead us in the pledge? Oh, Representative McKenzie. Yeah. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Congressman McKenzie, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If the members could introduce themselves, starting with Representative McKenzie, Malou.
I'm State Representative Malou McKenzie from the 131st District. I represent part of Northampton County, part of Lehigh County, and part of Montgomery County.
Zach Mako, the 183rd, Lehigh, Northampton counties.
Doyle Heffley, I represent the 122nd District, Carbon County.
And good morning, friends. I'm Jonathan Fritz, proudly representing the 111th Legislative District comprising Wayne and Susquehanna County.
Good morning, everyone. Representative Robert Ledbetter, representing the 109th District, encompassing all of Columbia County.
Josh Kale, Beaver, Washington counties.
Ann Flood, 138th District, here in Northampton County.
State Representative Martina White out of Philadelphia, the 170th Legislative District. Thanks.
Good morning. State Representative Ryan McKenzie from the 187th District in portions of Lehigh County.
All right. Representative Flood, thank you for having us here in your district. I'll give you the floor to make some brief opening remarks, and we will go from there.
Good morning, colleagues, testifiers, and guests. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to Lehigh Heavy Forge for allowing us to host this hearing here on manufacturing momentum and assembling Pennsylvania's workforce. I'm excited to be back once again to showcase the many opportunities that the Lehigh Valley has to offer. Last year during Music Fest, I held a hearing just right next door to discuss the tourism here in the Lehigh Valley, and now we are back literally right next door at Lehigh Heavy Forge to learn and address the needs for workforce development and manufacturing and the incredible role that it plays for not only our country, our military. This area is rich in top institutions. A stone's throw away, we have Lehigh University across the river is Moravian University, and I would be remiss not to mention our Northampton Community College that partners with our local businesses to address the ever evolving needs and trying to, with the workforce and trying to meet them where they're at. So I'm sure that as you drove in, you saw the old bones and the old broken down structures of what was once the great Bethlehem Steel. Bethlehem Steel was a major employer for people here in the Lehigh Valley for generations. And to see the manufacturing company close their doors for their final time was a travesty to Bethlehem, and it was an enormous loss to our region. And in the more recent years, Lehigh Valley has exploded with many new businesses. It's growing so fast, but many are dismayed by the huge proliferation of warehouses, and people would rather see more opportunities in manufacturing here that bring good paying jobs for a better quality of life and help elevate opportunities in growth. So manufacturing is a rich staple to our region and to our country, and I'm excited to be here with Lehigh Heavy Forge and all of you to take a deep dive this morning into how the Commonwealth can create more opportunities in the manufacturing industry. So Mike Druckenmiller, thank you again for having this discussion with me and being able to bring this opportunity and bring us all together. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you to Lehigh Heavy Forge for having us here, for hosting us here. Manufacturing does have a special place in my heart as well, not just because I'm from Western Pennsylvania and Beaver County in particular, with the J&L plant that shut down about 20-some years ago now. A little longer than that actually now, but also because initially my family immigrated to the United States to work in one of Carnegie's mills. So you could say very fairly that the reason we came here was because of the manufacturing assets in Western Pennsylvania. And I think this is the third or fourth hearing that we've done across the state on this subject in particular. And what we're finding is it's not just a southwestern Pennsylvania issue. It's not just a Lehigh Valley issue either. All over the Commonwealth, whether it's York County, Luzerne County, there are manufacturing assets. And one thing in particular that we are seeing is protecting American manufacturing is actually protecting America. And I think your company here shows that very explicitly, but in every facet of manufacturing. It's important that we're not dependent on foreign adversaries for the goods that we make, and it's especially important that we're not dependent on that in regards to our defense in particular. So looking forward to this hearing, looking forward to seeing how we can help Pennsylvania's manufacturing base, how we could grow it, keep it, grow it. And we have great testifiers today. So I'm going to hand the floor over to our testifiers. The first one is Michael Druckenmiller, is the Vice President of Lehigh Heavy Forge. Blair Woodring, Director of Business Development, Precision Custom Components. Nancy Dishnet, the Executive Director of Workforce Board, the Workforce Board, Lehigh Valley, and John Radigan, good, okay. The Chairman of the Marine Machinery Association. If you could keep your remarks to 3 to 5 minutes, I'm not going to gavel anybody out. I have not done that yet. Maybe we should do that, just to, but anyway. But we do like robust Q&A, so Mr. Druckenmiller, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kale. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Druckenmiller. I'm the Vice President at Lehigh Heavy Forge. I've been at LHF for over 9 years, and prior to working in the steel industry, spent 8 years in the mining industry, 8 years in the glass industry, and 6 years in the paper industry. All of my 30-plus years have been spent in heavy industry with a focus on having a strong, dedicated workforce to successfully support and guide that production. We at Lehigh Heavy Forge make steel forgings. We're proud to serve as a premier supplier of critical forged products to America's Navy and to commercial customers around the world. We pride ourselves in not engaging in politics, and we are grateful to the organizers of this hearing for focusing on the importance of manufacturing and workforce development, a nonpartisan issue on which we can all agree is the lifeblood of Pennsylvania's economy. The history of Lehigh Heavy Forge dates back to 1887 as the Bethlehem Iron Company, with the birth of the forging industry in the United States. Our predecessor company, Bethlehem Steel, has been responsible for building the steel infrastructure of the United States and the world. In 1997, we became Lehigh Heavy Forge, producing forged, heat-treated, finished machined, and inspected critical components to the U.S. Navy, the Defense Industrial Base, and heavy industry for now over 27 years. LHF currently employs around 50 salaried workers, as well as about 130 hourly workers. All of our hourly workers are a union workforce, represented by the local 2599 branch of the United Steelworkers Union. Today, I'd like to talk briefly about some serious issues we at Lehigh Heavy Forge are currently facing regarding the lack of a strong, full workforce. This is not an issue unique to Lehigh Heavy Forge, as you will hear from today's other testifiers, but one that currently has the entire United States manufacturing industry in a double armbar. There are many reasons why we are currently in this predicament, but I will touch on a few main points to include lack of qualified machinists, NDT technicians, and maintenance technicians, significant local job market competition, employee retention, diminished career employee culture, and fewer real-life training opportunities. As I mentioned, there are many reasons as to why we're facing this workforce shortage and at such critical time in the history of our country, and many of them are tied together. Testimony today will attempt to summarize some of the issues faced by LHF and our fellow manufacturers, especially in the defense industrial base. Back in the early 1990s, then Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney announced the cancellation of the U.S. Navy's Seawolf class submarine program. While this was billed as a funding cut to save taxpayer money and focus on new technology items, what it did was decimate the nation's defense industrial base and help start the onset of the workforce shortages in skilled labor we are facing today. Lehigh's #1 issue faced regarding today's workforce is the extreme lack of qualified machinists, NDT technicians, and maintenance technicians available for us to hire. If I could flip a switch and have access to a pool of qualified machinists, I could justify hiring 20 of them overnight. The same sentiment goes for trying to bring on NDT and maintenance technicians, but there are just not enough of them out in the market today to do so. Another issue LHF faces in expanding our workforce is significant competition in the local market. Here in the Lehigh Valley, we are in a hotbed of activities centrally located to a few major market centers. New York City is just 80 miles to our northeast. Philadelphia is 60 miles to our south, and New Jersey is only 10 miles to our immediate east. In addition to these areas competing for the quantities of our jobs, they also offer a much higher wage base due to their higher cost of living. So this issue actually hits us with a double whammy. Employee retention is another problem facing our workforce today. With so many other options in our area and surrounding areas, coupled with the fact that manufacturing jobs in the forging business represent tough labor in a less than nice environment, holding on to workers also becomes problematic. Coupled with retention issues is an issue we call diminished career employees. No longer exists the culture of Bethlehem Steel where Grandpa worked there, Dad went to work there, and little Johnny followed in their footsteps and worked there as well. Today's industry sees a lot of job hoppers chasing a buck and not settling in for the long haul. And the last issue I'll touch on is that of real-life training opportunities. Our middle schools and high schools no longer offer shop classes to everyone. A college degree is lauded more than teaching real job skills, and companies very seldom offer apprenticeship programs. We do see some good technical schools in our area making some inroads, but not on the scale for which we need to reestablish a significant skilled workforce. Perhaps what could help this situation would be the establishment of an industrial training center where local companies work together with local schools through government-funded initiatives to provide a more real-life training experience. Lehigh Heavy Forge does participate in several national initiatives aimed at driving workforce development and collaboration within the manufacturing industry. We are a plank owner and enterprise member of the Pennsylvania Talent Pipeline, and we are regular participants in the Marine Machinery Association, the Aircraft Carrier Industrial Base Coalition, the Submarine Industrial Base Coalition, and the Forging Industry Association, to name a few. It is imperative that the manufacturing industry bands together to address the current issues faced in workforce development. I would like to thank everyone for being here today to listen to this testimony on this important topic and for my opportunity to present my viewpoints on the same. At Lehigh Heavy Forge, we have long enjoyed the support of the elected officials who represent our community, our state, and our country. Among these officials include State Representative Ann Flood, State Representative Steve Samuelson, State Senator Lisa Boscola, Congresswoman Susan Wild, Senator John Fetterman, Senator Bob Casey, and many others. Each of these individuals have come to our aid when we needed support for efforts to maintain or improve the manufacturing capacity needed to help us serve our customers and maintain a safe and healthy, skilled workforce. We are truly grateful for this support, and again, I thank you for allowing this testimony today.
Mr. Woodring.
That was pretty eloquent. Thank you for having me here today. I appreciate Mike asking me. I'll let you know about my background from Western Pennsylvania. They used to call me coal miner, where I went to school in Ohio. I've steel in my blood. My father worked in the mills. So I know a lot about this, and I've been in this business despite being told in college later on that it was a dying, a dying situation. It's not. Heavy manufacturing is one of the most interesting, unique, certainly something to be proud of. And I can tell you later on we go into question and answer of other cities that have rebuilt themselves around heavy manufacturing, the immense pride it brings to the community, and not just the economic benefits with it too. But I think it's time that things cycle, and I think it's time to cycle back into some of these areas that Michael alluded to. So PCC, Precision Custom Components, was at one time called the S. Morgan Smith Company. It was the builder of the turbines that went into the Hoover Dam, the early hydroelectric powering of the United States. It was around in the late 1800s. I'm terribly embarrassed. I don't know the beginning of the year. The owners would be very disappointed in me for not doing that. But that's all right. I walk through the doors on my way to work. We fabricate. We have moved into commercial nuclear, both Navy and commercial nuclear over the years, at one time being owned by Allis-Chalmers, being divested, and then being taken over by management ownership over the years. We have a history of staying in heavy manufacturing. We, like Lehigh Heavy, suffered from the Seawolf cancellation. We went from 800 to about 200, literally in the course of a week, which is it's not anybody's fault. I'm glad that we weren't at war, but it shows the resiliency of the ownership and the people of PCC and New York County, that they figured out how to keep going despite this curveball being thrown at them. We're a union facility, Aerospace Machinists Union. We have an excellent relationship with them. We've had one work stoppage, but it would never be repeated again. We proactively increased wages in our facility to do some of the things we'll talk about later to retain skilled employees. We're a level 1 vendor to the Navy. We're doing reactor components and launch systems. We work hard to maintain the reputation that we have built. We're still on the upward climb as far as what our abilities are and what our output needs to be. And we're the only, to my knowledge, I believe I'm correct, the only United States N-stamped vendor to make reactor pressure vessels. So what's happening at TMI is it ought to be a signal resurgence in the commercial nuclear industry, but we hold the U.S.'s only N-stamp to build reactor pressure vessels. So SMRs are of interest to us and ought to be of interest to everybody else. We're working to build a consortium of some other suppliers in that realm so that we can be the tail wagging the dog. We'll have the solutions for the industry and the government. I'm talking about DOE and NRC, who say that the supply chain doesn't exist. I'm here to tell you it absolutely does exist with Mike's company, with the people that John knows, and steel companies in Pennsylvania. It's there. It needs to be marshaled and facilitated properly. It's not as bad as people make it out to be. The current landscape of our work includes machining, welding, non-destructive testing, design validation, final acceptance testing, inspection. Again, all the things that go into the fabrication or the design, the build to print model of something that's drawn out, that has a lot of parts and goes together. We're part of we have another sister company in New Jersey called DC Fabricators that's in the same scope. They do heat exchangers and things like that. They're also critical. They're also a level 1 supplier to the Navy. We have about 265 people in York. We work with the York County Manufacturers Association and the Navy Talent Pipeline. We participated with the Navy Pipeline when it first started. We decided, because of where we are in central Pennsylvania, and it's a fairly provincial area, that we needed to do something on our own. So we got with the trade schools out in York, the York County Manufacturers Association, to do something for ourselves. We were the recipient of something called the TIDE Award, which is a technology and innovation in defense ecosystem. So we're working with the schools out there and a couple other institutions, including Penn State and Pitt and some other, to develop our own workforce, regardless of what, and forgive me for saying this, government does for us or doesn't do. We have to take care of ourselves. And that's just I guess it's in our blood. I'm proud to be a part of that kind of mindset. We're the 2025 PA Company of Excellence for the Talent Pipeline. So there's a lot of focus on us to work on recruitment and retention. So we're getting help from the Navy, some outside consultants to work with our leadership to develop leadership. I'm talking about on-the-floor leadership, to develop our supervisors, to develop the necessary transparency top to bottom so that when leaders are talking about what they ought to do, they're walking the walk. So this is an outstanding opportunity for us to be a part of, because there are other companies that have gone through this, Cleveland Cliffs, a Barron company in Philadelphia, the name escapes me. There's other companies across the U.S. that have been identified as, to start this kind of program, again, to a resurgence of American manufacturing and excellence in company performance. Our expansion, just like Mike said, we could double the size of our company overnight if we had a workforce that was expanded, more experience. There was a big gap between my generation and the current generation we're hiring. There's a name for it, something about silver hair, or I don't know what it is. Anyway, I'm going to be around for a while, so I'll be able to teach people. Is that what it is? Silver tsunami. Yeah, that's a good word. Anyway, but the point of it is, with the Navy work that's coming our way, we could hire similarly. We have machinist jobs open. We have welding jobs open. We have quality technician jobs open. We want to expand. We're working with the Navy to consider expansion in York, Pennsylvania, or some other facility. We were doing something with the Inflation Reduction Act. I was going to operate the WEMCO facility out in Homestead, get that back up and running to build SMRs. That's come and gone, but there's facilities all across Pennsylvania that could be activated relatively quickly, because the structure is there. It needs the people to work in them. So we have some asks, and because we're a no foreign facility, we're restrained. We literally can't hire anybody that wasn't born in the U.S. That's a Navy restriction. That's not a problem. If we get into commercial nuclear, we'll start another company, and that will be somewhere where we can hire U.S. persons that will be compliant with DOE and NRC regulations for people, citizens being able to look at these things. So I guess our ask is, we've understood that the governor has been given things, but they haven't been funded. I don't know what that goes with, but something called the Robinson Landmark Advanced Manufacturing Initiative seems to be something that would benefit a lot of companies in Pennsylvania. If you want more specifics about it, I have people in our company that are involved with the York County Manufacturers Association and our group in Harrisburg that can go into more detail. I can tell you what we do and what we ought to do and what we can do. So thanks for your time, guys. It was a little long, I know. I was going to be a lot shorter initially.
Ms. Dishnet.
You do that right? Can you hear me? Oh, you will. You will. Thank you. Thank you for having me here today. You do have my testimony. In Pennsylvania, the unemployment rate is 3.4%. Labor force of 6.6 million. Only 224,000 are unemployed. Actually, 224,201 are unemployed. And a labor participation rate of estimated at 62%. There are 236,106 job openings and 1.1 job for every individual that's looking for a job, and 28,281 more jobs than last year. Help me, Rhonda. Well, my name is not Rhonda, but I am here to address the importance of Pennsylvania's workforce system if these numbers do not paint the picture. You have received my written testimony, and I'm available anytime to go over it with you. It's imperative to understand employer needs. Workforce board systems are aware, informed, and ready. Employers continuously add new skills along career pathways. The mantra we tell education every single day. We have developed over 400 career pathways, and I'm asking you in some way, shape, or form to require every employer to develop a career pathway so that they can be on everybody's website, on education's website, so children, the parents, and adults, and everyone understands the pathway to gold-collar jobs that these gentlemen are talking about in Pennsylvania. We need to do that. That's one thing you can do and have happen right away, which leads me to recommendation 1. There needs to be a closer alignment between workforce development, economic development, education, and the community. We should not be doing programs that aren't aligned with business and industry, that are affected by education, so that we have the end product coming out of what we need. They're reaching everywhere to get the product they need to deliver services. We need to make sure we're growing it. We need to, through education. In preparing today's testimony, I certainly work with the Chamber of Commerce, who we hired as our business intermediary. So I understand what every business needs. So I know what they're going after, and I know the problems and issues that they're having. They need that partner, you know, to work with you, to say, what do you need? How can we develop it? How can we reach the Navy for it? What can we do for you? Do you know what I mean? We also asked them to go to the manufacturing sector, which we work with a lot, but asked them 3 questions for us. One, I said, what are the top 3 business issues? What are your top 2 workforce development issues? And what solutions or suggestions to these issues could be introduced by legislators? Didn't get a lot, but I guess, you know. The survey results said, we're not growing a technically skilled workforce fast enough, and we do not have a career and technical education system that is mainstreamed, and it's not forefront in education. It's a sidebar. Career and technical education is a sidebar, which leads me to recommendation 2. Help us grow a technically skilled workforce through technical training, have fully funded career and technical education centers directly embedded in high schools. No student should have to drive 45 minutes to get technically trained while they're still in high school. Recommendation 3. Career and technical schools must provide state-of-the-art technical skills training. We must fund career and technical education to instruct, develop employer-driven curriculum, and purchase state-of-the-art equipment based on industry needs and industry projections. This will increase the labor market, especially our youth population, which if you look at the data, that's where we're getting it. I said every widget coming out of high school is so imperative to the economy. You're already looking at the population that's there already. We need to make sure these young adults coming out understand jobs and skills and labor market. Recommendation 4. I recommend a legislative tour of career and technical schools across Pennsylvania. I'll be very happy to set that up. I have my association chair here. They will be very happy to set up a legislative tour of career and technical education and take a look and see what we need to do, what we need to work on. As a workforce board, we're part of the solutions for change. Use us, utilize us. We don't even see enough of you, so that would be another thing, okay? The Employer and Industries Training and Education Consortium, ITEC, the model created by Bond Industry. They now have 12 employers involved in a pre-apprenticeship and an apprenticeship program. This is another model we need to look at, not only in industry, because we need to get the training on all the lists that are available so that students can go through it, so that they have a matriculation through pre-apprenticeship, apprenticeship into jobs connected with the employer base in the state of Pennsylvania. But employers need flexible, not restrictive funding to implement and replicate programs like ITEC. Recommendation 6, establish a solutions consortium with our association, the Workforce Association, and gentlemen like this. Get together once a month or once every 2 months and understand and learn where we need to go. We need a stronger focus on youth development. When contracting employers, two concerns came up. An aging workforce, that's what they're saying. Our workers are getting old. What are you doing about it, Nancy? Oh, I don't know, a birthing program, I think, you know? And an unprepared incoming workforce. We need a specific focus to prepare young people with the skills for jobs vacated by the current workforce. Employers are looking for programs that provide workforce dollars to fund, to hire, and grow talent, resources to train on site, upskilling and reskilling initiatives to keep pace with new and emerging technology. They allocate more resources to make training more accessible and affordable based on industry demand, not eligibility, not eligibility. Help us create interest in manufacturing career pathways, incentivized through tax credits and grants. Recommendation 7, increase student interest in career and technical education. embed skills training on site within high schools in manufacturing classes, hold manufacturing classes. I have employers now willing to go into the classroom and teach a manufacturing class. We have one school district that's interested in doing it with us. An employability class. We did an employability skills curriculum. The workforce system wrote it. We gave it to every high school in the Lehigh Valley. There's modules after modules. 2 doctors of education wrote it for us. We had 3,000 students go through it already. Every school should be going through that so they understand what are the jobs, what are the skills, what are the education requirements, and how do I conduct myself in an interview. So eligibility class and curriculum provides resources, design, and embed. Please, if there's one thing you can do is help us figure out how we can have workforce systems right in our high schools, so that we're there every day. When they have a class or a class that they don't have a class in, they can come down and talk to us about where are the jobs, what are the skills, what are the education requirements, where can I get an internship, where can I get a summer job. We need to have workforce centers right in the high school, not wait till they get out. Federal funding drives much of what workforce boards do. We are stuck with eligibility, although the state has been really very good in giving us additional resources to do some business education partnerships, but not enough to satisfy this kind of need that's going on. Do you know what I mean? So we have to look at that. We need to also free the data. We're saying that all the time. Data is what I look at all the time to say, where's the workforce coming from? Where are they going? What are we doing? So free the data. I know you're pretty familiar with that already. If not, I have it detailed in the report I gave. You really have the opportunity to impact employers, workers, and job seekers through the creation of a more integrated, innovative, skill-based, and job-driven workforce system legislative platform on your platform. I repeat, help us, Rhonda. Help me see more job seekers walking through the doors of your state system, PA CareerLink Lehigh Valley, than I do see walking in the doors of the Department of Public Welfare. We want them to have an employer paycheck, not a government paycheck. Thank you.
Mr. Radigan?
Well, that's going to be hard to follow. Good morning, esteemed members of the Pennsylvania Republican Caucus. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today at Lehigh Heavy Forge, a remarkable testament to American resilience and hard work. A special thanks goes to Mike Druckenmiller from Lehigh Heavy for asking me to speak to this prestigious group. Standing in this facility, I'm reminded of the values that shape my own life and the importance of supporting our manufacturing sector. I'll give you a little background on me. I'll cut it short because it could go long. But born in Boston to a blue-collar immigrant family, parents came to this country with nothing, driven by a desire for a better life. My father began his journey working as a laborer in the tire industry until the Hood rubber plant closed down. He eventually became a self-made stationary power plant engineer. I still vividly remember my older brother asking my father questions when he was in his 50s before one of his licensing exams. And I'm like, in my 50s, I'm not sure I could have handled that stuff. But I will never forget watching my dad and having that dedication and determination unfold. So growing up, my parents didn't have any financial means to support my education that I wanted, so I did it on my own. I got my college and graduate degrees on my own, determined to make the most of the opportunities available to me. I'm a registered professional engineer, hold numerous patents in the U.S. and foreign countries, and I consider myself a lifetime learner. My story is a testament of what hard work and perseverance can achieve, but it also underscores the challenges many families in our country face today. Many children don't come from a two-parent family, many don't speak English as a first language, and many don't have the financial resources to finish high school, never mind going for additional training after high school. Out of college, I worked for 2 major shipbuilders for 10 years. I was a test engineer testing 688 class submarines, and to tell you the truth, someone my height hits their head a lot on a submarine. Then I went to Bath Iron Works, where I was a construction manager assigned to the USS John Paul Jones, a $3 billion warship. Then I went into private industry as a DoD contractor, where I designed and manufactured equipment for the U.S. Navy for 23 years, rising to the position of Vice President of Engineering. After that, my career pivoted to Vice President of Engineering and Manufacturing for 2 metal processing manufacturing plants, one in Providence, Rhode Island, and one up the road in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. While carrying a full workload, I was moonlighting at the same time doing engineering work for a roadway safety company. Since 2016, I've owned my own company and been tasked to be the chairman of the Marine Machinery Association, a nonprofit that helps maritime industrial base work smarter for the U.S. Navy and our maritime industrial base. I'm also the chief engineer for that roadway safety company now, and in my spare time, I've been publicly speaking on the topic of workforce development since 1993. And I'll just give you a couple of my more notable topics that covered in speeches. How to develop high school students for entering the manufacturing workforce. Where are the girls, and how do we attract them to manufacturing?
Amen.
Amen. What I wish my teachers or my first boss told me when I took my first job out of college. Shipbuilding is a contact sport. And how to enter the maritime industry and deal with the myriads of terms of conditions, government specs, and quality requirements. How do we train people to do that? So background on the industry that supports the U.S. Navy. As we gather here, we must recognize the critical importance of supporting our manufacturing workforce. Pennsylvania's manufacturing sector is not just vital to the state economy, it's the backbone of the industrial base that supports the U.S. Navy. Yet, we are grappling with significant challenges, particularly a skilled labor challenge. As older generations retire, we must ensure that a new generation is ready to step up. The surge in shipbuilding that is occurring in this country hasn't been seen in over 50 years. Submarines, aircraft carriers, destroyers, frigates, and a Coast Guard fleet replacement are all happening at the same time. In the case of submarines, we are retiring submarines faster than we currently build them. One estimate says the industry needs 10,000 new welders by 2030. Just yesterday I was told we need 14,000 new workers in the industry per year for the next 10 years. On top of that, there's extreme competition for talent out there. The wind power industry believes they will need 40,000 new workers this decade. Construction and medical communities face the same potential worker shortages. This is directly impacting the shipbuilding industry and the major shipyards. Newport News Shipbuilding, for example, is hiring 2,000 new employees this year and plan to do that for the rest of the decade. To address this, we need to focus on 3 key areas: education, workforce development, and private-public partnerships. I'll concentrate on workforce development. The first is there's some really good news stories out there that we should all, if we aren't looking at them now, we need to look at them. The first is obviously the Pipeline Project, formerly known as the Pennsylvania Pipeline Project. This group was stood up in 2021 at the Union Hall in downtown Philly, and I remember being there and saying to myself, can we really make this happen? Well, it is happening. I've been advising to this group since 2020, and with Navy funding and guidance, it has been a great success. It takes the manufacturers, for example, in Pennsylvania, students and the educational institutions, putting them all together and training first-class students for the industry. Each successful student goes through a signing night that rivals anything a top-level athlete would see in high school. This is a classic example of public and private partnering. Since the original program started in Philly, the program has expanded to include Pittsburgh, Hampton Roads, Boston, Long Island, and Southern California. Over 3,000 new hires have come out of the system since 2021. A second national treasure we have is the Accelerated Training in Defense Manufacturing, or ADTM program in Danville, Virginia. It's a 4-month program where students living in a campus setting while having a vigorous education is all paid for by the U.S. Navy. Again, training and lodging is free. Students sent by a company still get paid by the company during that training period. I first visited there in January of 2020 and thought that every member of my association needs to get there that year. Unfortunately, COVID happened, and we had to put things on the hold for a while. But ADTM has rebounded from COVID with great results. Just last year, I was a keynote speaker at a graduation, and approximately 150 new first-class workers entered or re-entered the workforce at that time. ADTM is currently graduating 600 skilled workers per year and are planning to graduate 1,000 students per year in 2025. A new 107,000 square foot additive manufacturing building is scheduled to open in the spring of 2025. 2025. And happy to say that I'm bringing my association back there next month. Thank you for commitment to this vital cause and for the opportunity to share my story and vision today. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Flood.
Thank you to all that testimony. I mean, clearly there's a need. Mike, you had discussions. Have you had any discussions with any of the colleges locally to try and address some of the workforce issues that you are experiencing here in particular? And the reason why I asked this is also, Nancy, you talked about the need for, well, actually, they're two separate things, but Mike, let me just start with you. Yeah.
Yes, we've spoken with Northampton Community College has a pretty good outreach program. We work with LCTI, L-Tri-C. We actually have a training agreement with LCTI where we send our machinists up there to get additional training. So we pay for that for them to go. We pay for them to be there. And again, it's a good opportunity for us to accentuate what we can do internally here with some outside training as well. We interact with those organizations on a regular basis to put presentations on to them, bring them in here. We actually just had started a sponsorship of the Forging Club at Millersville University. We brought a whole bunch of people from Millersville in here this past summer, and we actually hired 3 of them as interns for this past summer. So we're going to continue to sponsor them, and we have a great relationship with Lehigh University as well. Most of that is on the technical end because they've got some resources there, and ironically, we don't have the technical resources here as we did once under Bethlehem Steel. So we depend on interactions like that to help us on some of the everyday things because we're such a lean organization at this point in time.
And is it you going and asking them for help, or are they also promoting throughout their educational systems opportunities available here at Lehigh Heavy Forge?
It's mostly us on the push end. It's something that we've probably started coming out of COVID. We did a pretty good job of getting out there, even into Bethlehem Voc Tech School and things with that age group. But we're pushing it. They're very receptive to it, so it's something that's gained a lot of momentum. Definitely not where we need to be at this point yet, but something to continue to expand upon.
So, Nancy, I had a whole bunch of questions, and then you obliterated it with such great testimony. But my thought is along your lines, too. So getting into those high schools and, letting them know, and I know, like, I have children that are just, into the college. My son's just out of college now. But and even my nephew, who didn't choose to go to college, he went into the line of welding. But he didn't know where he wanted to go, and he didn't know the opportunities that were available to them. And how do we let them know about the opportunities that, manufacturing organizations have available to them? Right. And know, hey, you could do welding. You could be part of this program. These are all these different things that you can get into because college isn't for everyone. Mm-hmm. And so, partnering with technical schools, partnering with our community colleges, and making sure we do a better job letting kids know in high school that you don't have to go and get a 4-year education. There are so many jobs across the Commonwealth in manufacturing that will provide you with a good job, a good income, a good quality of life, and let them know what's out there. Because I just feel like these children, students, men, boys and girls, do not know what's out there and available to them.
And they don't. And we find that. Oh, I'm sorry. And what we're finding is that the teachers say, I don't have time to do that. I'm teaching the class. I don't have time to work on that. Even the curriculum coordinators go, where do you expect me to fit that in the day in education? I get it. I get what you're talking about, which is why we want to embed ourselves there so that students can come to us and we can kind of make them aware and we can be part of the teacher's curriculum of when they're learning new things, and we can talk to them so slowly they will get educated on where are the jobs, what are the skills, what are the educational requirements, Because a lot of these children that we're all working with, they go home and their parents don't know what to be.
Yeah.
They don't know the jobs and skills, so we better make sure we're embedded a knowledge base just on what these gentlemen are talking about within the system and show them not only the local jobs, but the global jobs, because they don't even think that way. So we need a broader scope, but you have to be there in their face every day, working with them. And career and technical education, certainly, I would say they dabble in it as much as they can afford to and are given the resources to do and are doing a great job. We need more of that. How do we mend career and technical education with higher skills for the individual also too, because you want a smart career and technical education student that can brainstorm and think the next steps in your training program. So that has to be embedded in a different way. So that's a whole other subject. Do you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to speak initially from a national security standpoint, and thank you so very much for everything that you do, all of you. And my next thanks is going to go to Ann Flood. You have really assembled quite a cast of characters here. I've done a lot of hearings, and we've got some interesting personalities. Going down the row here, Druckenmiller, you referenced in your testimony double armbar. Yes. I'm a full tilt wrestling family. Appreciate that. Blair, your stoicism, phenomenal. Resurgence of American excellence. Thank you for that. Nancy, you are a spitfire. Holy Moses. And you know I'm going to be tortured for the rest of the day by Help Me Rhonda, the Beach Boys? Like, seriously? That's going to happen. And John, your personal story that you shared with us, talking with John. John, your personal story, wonderful, thank you. And I did pick up on how you snuck a little bit of that Boston accent in there, buddy. That did not slide by me. He's from Boston. I want to talk a little bit because I have a parallel dynamic in my district where 10 years ago we realized that we sat on a massive, massive find of natural gas. And Bourne was a new industry. And if you're from Susquehanna County, prior to natural gas development, you were timbering, dairy farming, or bluestone. That was it. So it was very limited opportunity. All of a sudden we have this blessing, this economic godsend that is natural gas. But part of that was we need workforce. So we've been dealing with a lot of the same challenges that you have been. I just want to share with you something that we've taken to doing. And again, we've all got to be tied together, economic development, industry, our schools, of course. But one thing I do is when we go to a career day, is I always bring in some industry friends. And I'll stand there and introduce myself and tell them about what I do for a living and, the outfit that I have to wear, which is a suit and tie. And then I'll bring in a 20-year-old that's working in the natural gas industry, and beside him is a young female, a young lady that's working for a pipeline company doing either marketing or engineering. And I'll say, hey, I'm 47 years old. I'm wearing a suit. I make $95,000 a year. And I'll ask the next person, what's your story? And he'll say, I'm 20 years old, making $95,000 a year. I get to work with people that are awesome. I have a brand new snowmobile. I have a brand new 3/4-ton truck. And then the young lady, oh, I own my own house. I have a beautiful brand new car, living the American dream. And there's a theme here that we're all touching on, and I just want to shine a bright light on it. We need to make manufacturing and working with your hands cool. It needs to be sexy. It needs to be fun. And we can do that by messaging, but it needs to be part of a paradigm shift. Because right now, and listen, I'm full-on Penn Stater, right? I have a Penn State degree. But we have been steering kids in the wrong direction. They think that going to college and hanging out and doing beer bongs, like that's the sexy thing. No, I say making money in your 20s is the sexy thing. And paying off that mortgage and having that kind of opportunity. When you're making a ton of money in your 20s, the rest of your life is pretty darn easy. And I just think that that's a central message that we really need to embed within our communities, and we really need to get out there. Who's a better ambassador than us? So I just want you to know that we're facing the same challenge in other places, and there is a path forward. But I'm happy to cooperate with you, and thank you so very much for having me here today.
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you for that. And just to kind of build upon that, how do we get that message out there? I know there's a lot of things going on right now. Every one of us here in this room that works for Lehigh and the Navy companies, we're familiar with this thing called buildsubmarines.com. I'm sure you guys have probably seen that, but basically that's what that's doing on a national level. I think doing something like that on a state level would be phenomenal to help everything that we're talking about here today. And great idea, and I think we should do something to build upon that from a media standpoint if we can.
So I think what would work a little bit better would be $100,000 a year.com, because we have a very fickle audience that we're catering to and trying to capture their attention. I'm a father of a 21, 19, and 17-year-old. All they think about is money and having fun. And I get it. I was that age at one time too. So I think if you focus on the money aspect of it, that's a good way to capture their attention. And from there, make it sexy and make it fun and make it compelling.
If I can add something, and this was 10 years ago, I still remember going over the Throgs Neck Bridge in New York, and there's a little school right under the bridge called New York Maritime, and they had a huge banner that you could not miss. It said, "Our graduates start at $110,000 a year. What do yours make?" And it's like, holy crap. And those jobs are there. The whole industry is there right now. The maritime industry is exploding. We're finally figuring out that we don't really have enough ships to support the Navy on the transportation side, meaning they go to war, where are the bombs, the next set of bombs? Where's the next set of supplies? Where's the next set of food for the Army, the Navy, everybody? It has to go by ship. We don't have enough planes to ship that stuff out. It has to go by ships. We have like under 100 merchant marine ships right now. In World War II, we had 600 to start the war, and it went up, exponentially after that. So the jobs are out there, and getting back to Mike's point, buildsubmarines.com, they have a website they'll let any employer post their jobs on. They'll let anybody looking for a job post their resume on, and it's all free. You're not giving Indeed a cut or any of that. It's a free service. And getting back to that ADTM, that's available for everybody in this country. Right now, they have 40 states using that program. People are, and I think it's great, especially if someone's already employed and they go there. It's basically, you're upskilling your employees. You're taking that 1 or 2 year person and getting them a ton more exposure. And it's not just technical skills. They teach them all the soft skills, meaning you got to be there on time. You got to work in teams. If someone's not pulling their weight, they all get to rotate as the boss. So they have to figure out, how do I get that person that's not pulling their weight to pull their weight? There's some great programs out there we all need to take advantage of. Thank you.
There are a lot of great programs, but we have to, in the workforce system, understand at a national level where these companies are. And we don't hear from you. We don't hear from you, these companies. We need to make sure that we understand the global issue of workforce development too. So we need to take a harder look at that. But no matter what, we can try to do it, because people walk in our doors every day looking for a job, or they're walking in our doors and they have $200,000 in debt because they went to college and they wanted to be a songwriter, or they wanted to be a dancer or something like that. So infiltrating not just high school, but community colleges and career and technical schools and college to market large company needs. We don't do that a lot in the workforce system, and I think that's one thing I've learned today. I'm going to take a look at all the government contracts and the employers involved in it, but you need to tell your story better to us, to the workforce systems too in Pennsylvania, because I'm not aware of some of them, and I'm a nosy buddy. You know what I'm saying? I know I dabble a little bit, but you're telling me good stories that we could align with you and really do a lot better job. Like I said, I already got one now. So I already got one now. Do you understand? And then we could be talking to the young adults about the potential of this. This is a pathway to an employment college. Not a pathway necessarily to a 4-year degree, which isn't necessary right now. You're seeing that, right? It's always necessary 4-year schools, but you know what I'm saying. What are the new pathways? And help us develop them. I'd love to work, and maybe we can work as a committee to say, hey, here's a little direction we should go within the state of Pennsylvania. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Okay, thank you.
Representative Ledbetter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Panelists, thank you so much for your testimony this morning. Insightful stuff. I represent a district quite a ways from here where the #1 industry is agriculture. And when I think of the agrarian shift in our past, during the Industrial Revolution where we went from farm to factory, there was a shift in workforce. Mr. Druckenmiller, you talked about your professional career, steel, mining, glass, and paper. When did you start in paper? How old were you?
Just out of college, just out of my 4-year college degree, 22 years old.
Sure, right? Younger guy, getting going. Ms. Dishnet, you used a term that I thought was absolutely spot on, gold-collar jobs. Gold-collar jobs. Not a different term that might be attributed to less than, but gold-collar jobs, implying something that is to be strived toward, a standard that young people could seek. Mr. Radigan, you talked about over the next 50 years, the surge in shipbuilding that's going to be taking place. I believe you quoted 14,000 new workers every year over the next 10 years. An incredible, incredible amount of opportunity available. 10,000 new welders needed. Mr. Woodring, you mentioned that you could double your workforce overnight if you could. I had the great honor earlier this week of awarding a House citation to a constituent of mine who joined the U.S. Navy in 1944 at 16 years old. 16. As we talk about workforce development, when I meet with individuals in my office in Harrisburg, I have a rule: no buzzword bingo. Because we can all sound like we're saying really important stuff and get nothing done. So to eliminate the buzzword bingo, can you guys give us insight as legislators to what some of the regulatory obstacles are currently in place that prevent the high school level pathways, whether they be work programs, career and technical programs, that would allow that pipeline to shift just a little earlier? So that way you're not trying to convince a 20-year-old to go make 100,000, because at 19, they already know they can.
I can tell you it's a recent occurrence. I have a 7 and 9-year-old in Catholic school in Wilmington. I went to a career day and took my things with him, pictures of aircraft carriers, forgings, castings, and things like that, against all the other things that were up there. And forgive me for saying it, the priesthood, for example. That's the range of some of these things. Anyway, suffice to say that my little table was surrounded by these first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth graders, staring at this stuff, their jaws dropping at the immensity of it. We're a member of Blue Forge Alliance, or support that. So I've taken it. I'm introducing. They have an education director at the primary elementary school level. She's quite bright. I'm putting her up with the Archdiocese in Philadelphia. In Wilmington, to figure out an outreach at that elementary school level and middle school level in Newcastle County. I know in Philadelphia, Father Judge has put in a school. To what John said, these kids are coming out damn near 6 figures, and they can afford a car, they can afford a house, they can afford to pay for things.
And they probably have 5 job offers apiece coming out of it.
That's quite true. Boy, I'll tell you what, if Pennsylvania could get a beach somewhere like Hampton Roads, or get a little bit warmer weather out near Pittsburgh, this would be a very attractive place. You wouldn't have any problem with workforce. But that being said, so I'm happy to put people in touch with the director there to do this kind of outreach at the school level. They're very sophisticated. Their marketing group or whatever it is, they're high end.
And thank you for that context, Mr. Roderick. But again, to the panel, are there current regulations in place that produce obstacles that prevent development in the high school age groups?
There are a few. There are certain factories that aren't allowed to bring in high school kids to their factories because it's deemed the jobs are too dangerous. so they're not allowed to start until they're 18, which is, and we got to break that. We need to figure out a way how to get kids into those factories earlier, you know, just as interns or as tours or anything. There's a great machine shop up in Arundel, Maine that is just buzzing. You know, it's all new equipment. Everybody in there is under 30, and I'm like, how do you guys do this? How do you get all these kids? And the owner teaches at the local vocational school, and he handpicks who he gets every year. He picks the best of the best. And they love him. The teachers love him because he comes in and gives them a day off from having to teach a class, and they can go catch up on their homework or write papers or correct papers or anything. And his class is in demand. And I've challenged everybody in our association to try to do something similar. Go teach a class at a school. I still remember teaching, you know, a super math class in sixth graders up in Aroostook, Maine, how to calculate Archimedes, you know, theorem, which was basically trying to figure out the volume of something. And we calculated that for an aircraft carrier, and they were like mesmerized. And I was mesmerized how smart they were. Switched to a bunch of sixth grade Catholic school kids, and I taught them how to build a submarine, you know, and we did it with Pepsi bottles. You know, it wasn't no money, you know, it was, you know, $10 worth of Pepsi that my kids gladly drank. And, you know, the kids just loved it. I still had, remember a kid coming up to me and says, you know, I went to Purdue because of that class you taught. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, it turned me on to stuff I just didn't know about. But that's what we all, you know, as manufacturers, we need to get in the classroom. We may need your help getting in the classroom because sometimes there's barriers to that, whether it's getting a bus or whatever, because we need to get those sixth graders, eighth graders, 10th graders out to the factories to see, you know, in a controlled environment, what's going on and what cool stuff is being made at Lehigh Heavy and PCC. I mean, because it is cool stuff.
It is cool.
You know, but.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I like that. That's good. That's what we're saying. That's our mantra. Again, let's have a manufacturing class in schoolwork and bring these gentlemen and ladies in and talk to kids about that. Fund us to do that. The workforce systems can do that within a month. Not a problem. The other thing that we found that was very instrumental in getting them to work at companies is providing students with a work experience at your company. So if we pay for work experiences during the school day or right after, if they open their doors more to allow this initiative to be broader in scope, because now we dabble in it, and if an employer will take a summer for a work experience program, a work experience student, we'll pay the salary. They'll say that we never get the kids back. Do you know what I mean? They absolutely stay there once they open their wheel. That's how we're opening their eyes. It's what you're doing. It's what you're teaching them. It's what they're learning. That excites them even a little more even in the classroom. So a manufacturing class, work experience. And the other thing we found was we took a group of career and technical school students and we did a rotational internship program within 6 companies. And we had all those students go 2 weeks, 3 weeks at each company and work there. And then they got to choose which company, and the company got to choose which skill set worked for them. That was very effective too. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, just wanted to reiterate what John pointed out is the age limitation. Now, we have the same thing here. We can't have anybody here that's under the age of 18. You know, we actually had a guy come in to interview, knock the socks off of the interviewers, and then we looked at everything on his application. It's like, oh shit, he's only 17 years old.
Right.
Told him, okay, you have to come back in 6 months, and we never saw the kid again. So unfortunately, we lost that one worker, and I don't know how many others we lose because of that, but we need to be able to figure out how to bring kids in sooner. And I wouldn't say even at high school. I would say even at grade school. Get them interested in the manufacturing, get them interested to understand what we actually do, and more so, where do the products that we make, where do they go? I mean, show them a poster of a submarine, show them a poster of an aircraft carrier. You know, for us here at Lehigh Heavy Forge, that's important for understanding where the products go. And you know, we talk a little bit about serving the country. You know, I'm a veteran, and you know, there's many people that can't be veterans for whatever reason, one thing or another. What we're trying to do is portray what we do here as serving your country as well. You're not joining the military, but you're serving the country. You're providing a service and you're providing a product to our military. So at the end of the day, you are serving the country in a certain way. Not specifically what you asked, but
No,
kinda
thank
where
you
we're
all.
going.
I'll look forward to collaborating with my colleagues here and in the State House to carve out that lane. Because if in the 1940s, 16-year-olds could defend our nation, I believe that 16-year-olds today can certainly serve it. So thank you.
Representative Mako.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just for the record, Robert, he lied about his age to get in, so I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So all the good questions were already asked, so I got to follow up. I had a question for you, Nancy. Something that I know you listed off your list of issues and then what we can do to resolve this, but more, I guess, locally, I think something that we can actually have a hand in. How receptive are our local high schools here in the Valley to these programs, sending kids to career and technical education to get them excited about this, allowing these individuals to come in and talk about manufacturing? I'm not going to say it, but there's a cool program that we do here in the Lehigh Valley. All right, what's so cool about manufacturing? How receptive are they? So that's something that we can affect when we do talk to our superintendents, when we do talk to the principals and the guidance counselors here in the Valley. I'm a townie. I graduated from Northampton in '07. I didn't know this existed. You know, I was college bound, even though I came from a lower middle class family. I had joined the Army to pay for it, and thankfully they paid my master's. But I didn't have those opportunities, and I didn't know about anything like this. I would have loved to do something along these lines. So how receptive are our local high schools to this?
Well, one of the issues is under the Workforce Investment Act that I work under, that's an all eligibility driven system. So we have to make sure they're at a certain income level before we work with them, and you know all the restrictions that go along with that. Our State Department of Labor and Industry has been very gracious in giving us some resources to develop business education partnerships. So that allows me to have workforce coordinators in our local high schools. I have one in Allentown, we have one in Bethlehem. So by putting workforce coordinators in the high school, that has begun to infiltrate the educational system, where we're not only talking to the teachers about jobs and skills and requirements, but we're talking to students one-on-one. And we give those workforce coordinators goals. You have to talk to 400 students over the course of the year and talk to them about career and technical. Where are the jobs? What are the skills? What are the education requirements? And how do we get access to jobs? So that has really helped us a lot in putting that together.
And you're seeing good numbers with that?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, and you're seeing like a positive impact with talking to the students directly?
Absolutely we are. We got all of our summer jobs for the Workforce Investment Act out of doing that. So that was really good. The other thing we did was we got a student representative from every high school. We said, okay, we're going to whip you into shape. We're going to do whatever we can do with you to get you to know where are the jobs, what are the skills, and open your eyes to, you can go with a global company, you can achieve this, you can do this, and tell them about all the services that are available, which now they're infiltrating the school kids. They're not even dealing with the teachers. They're talking to the other students, and they're bringing kids to us, and we're starting to have workshops for them, and we're starting to go into schools and have workshops and things like that. So that has been a real good thing. And for the first time this year, we got money, and we did a high school, I'm not biggest fan on job fairs. We do a lot of them, but I think there's other avenues. But we did a high school seniors only job fair. We wanted to get every single senior that wasn't going on to college, that wasn't on a career pathway, that didn't have a training agenda forward, to say, we want you to stay in the Lehigh Valley and work. Let us work with you. Let us do all we can. And we had 70 employers there, I think, willing to take them on. And they got jobs from that. So this year, we're increasing that by tenfold. You know, the employers really loved it. So we're playing, we're dabbling all we can from the workforce system in. What I need is a marriage between companies like this and a further alignment with economic development, workforce development, business and industry. That's what we need to do. Stronger connections for us. And talk about it. Ask us for something to say. We'll give you paragraphs. Talk. If you don't talk the talk, parents don't know the walk. And we need to train them so that their children hear it. So,
That sounds super positive. And then one question for you, Mike. When somebody's coming to look to work here at LHF, what kind of training do they need to show up with so that they can start? I don't know. Do they need to be welders? Do you guys train them to weld? Where are we starting, and where do they get that training? And say they missed out on going to a career technical in high school, and they just went through the standard high school, and then they're like, oh, got an opportunity here. What do they need to be looking at to be able to come and work?
Yeah, I mean, just in general, having a good attitude and a good work ethic is the basis for what you need. We can teach the kids or the people, not necessarily kids, but we can teach the applicants specifically what we do. It's always good to have a good mathematical background, engineering-wise, to work on the machines. But we've got so many different jobs. We've got such a wide breadth of what we do here, from working in our forge to specializing things on different machines. So the machinist background from something like LCTI or a technical school to even our non-destructive testing guys. We have people there that have very little secondary or post-secondary education to some people who are physics majors. So it's a wide breadth of what we do. But again, the biggest thing is to get somebody to come in here that wants to work and that wants to be here every day, doing what they're tasked to do. And
I mean, I think that's across the board with the soft skills. That's what we're hearing from everyone. But all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and great questions up here from my colleagues. So I just wanted to briefly mention and ask you all, have you heard of Grow PA? All right. So the reason I'm bringing it up is because this session in Harrisburg, our Republican legislative body has taken this initiative up, and it's designed with what you are describing to help address keeping the workforce here in Pennsylvania, attracting more people to come to Pennsylvania and to actually stay here upon their getting a quality education. So what these bills did was basically create a post-secondary education reform plan that includes several bills designated to help make Pennsylvania more competitive. Like I said, attracting and retaining students to attend college and complete certificate and job training programs. And they have to make commitments. They have to commit to going to these programs, but also staying here in Pennsylvania and working for companies that are based here, such as in your industry. So I encourage you to take a look at that, because it can be upwards of $5,000 per year for in-state students to be able to access those dollars and go to those different varying programs. We do take this issue very seriously, and we're making strides to help address the concerns that you have. But obviously, we have a long ways to go, and we're going to continue to make efforts in this regard. But I do have a couple of questions. I appreciated the mentioning of Philadelphia's Father Judge High School, who has done an incredible job to collaborate and get more manufacturing students who are interested in that field to go into that space. But you had mentioned SMRs briefly, and so I'm kind of switching directions on you here. But I wanted to find out how you recommend our Commonwealth handle the management of those types of energy sites, because it's obvious when we have a nuclear site, right, around our state. They're pretty big, very noticeable, and there's a lot of security around them. But SMRs are a little bit different. If you could maybe briefly mention to the membership what they are and why they're so important when we have been incentivizing data centers to come to Pennsylvania, and how this workforce obviously it's going to be in demand, but it's an expanding area, an industry. and how we can be a leader here in PA.
I'll let you know what I know about it.
All right, great.
SMR is a small modular reactor. It's smaller than a large nuclear reactor. Every nuclear submarine or aircraft carrier basically has, that's what power these things. So they've been being built safely for decades. Every coal plant that's existing everywhere or is hooked up to the grid, first of all. So it's a license there's a license that allows it to operate, and there's a safety zone around it. There's things, there might be water, there might be whatever it is. These sites exist in Pennsylvania and other places too. They could be more quickly brought back online to generate power into the grid for either a commercial application. I'm talking about just generating power, but also for specific end user applications like data centers, which are very popular right now. Dow Chemical is going to build 2 in Texas to power a massive petrochemical refinery. They're going to use the process heat, and they're also going to use the power that's generated off these to do the electricity on it. SMR is a big push on it right now because they're supposedly going to be built faster. There's 3 main designs that are out there right now that are very close to coming online. The state of Tennessee is probably the leader in that right now, promoting it. They've gone further than anybody. But Pennsylvania, because this is where the first reactor was out in Shippensport, is an ideal site for it because the climate of acceptance for nuclear power in PA ought to be pretty high. I mean, the demographics have switched from anti-nuclear to pro-nuclear. Everybody that's against TMI right now that I've seen right now is from New England, for Christ's sake. They need to shut up and stay, I'm from New England too. I've spent time up there. They don't need to.
I caught the accents up here.
Yeah, well, no, anyway, that's all right. But anyway, the point of it is that the workforce that's needed to operate the sites is fairly specialized, but can be trained relatively easily. The economic benefit for these, not just for the construction and the operation, but the economic benefit zone is fairly wide. There's data published in the Nuclear Energy Institute if you want it, or I can certainly find it for you, for the different size plants and what they do. I don't know how successful solar or wind is in Pennsylvania, but full-time power is a great benefit compared to intermittent power.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And John, I wanted to just ask you briefly about in the defense sector, the Delaware Valley Industrial Regional Corporation, DVIRC, down in my area, has been focused on this, focused on the defense sector to help promote grant writing capabilities or the applications to become a vendor with the U.S. government in order to get the projects and be able to work on them. Have you, I don't know how this region, necessarily works in regard to that interconnectedness through organizations like that and local schools, but I thought maybe you might be able to talk a little bit about that and how the workforce develops through the projects that are able to be bid on.
Well, the dirty little secret in manufacturing is you really don't hire people till you have a contract. You can't bring in people, train them, and have them just paint floors because they have nothing to do. With that said, there is a lot of ways that you can get into the defense industry, but it's almost impossible to take it on, like head on, meaning you're not going to become General Electric tomorrow. But what you should strive to do is work for General Electric tomorrow. I tell everybody, go work for the primes or the next tier people down. Let them deal with the paperwork. Let them deal with the requirements, and you learn. Let them mentor you to get you in, because to try to do it all by yourself, you can't hire enough experts. You need to work through one of these companies here to, become a supplier to them, and that's how you expand. The Department of Defense has so many rules and regulations between ITAR and, just no foreign and, there's so many rules you have to learn. I mean, you have to learn how to prioritize your work sometimes. And even though you get a contract in, you're supposed to have it out by the end of 2025, the government can shove another contract down your throat to push that one out. If it's just a rating system they do. If something's going on a submarine, it might get pushed ahead of something that's going to a nuclear, reactor. Believe it or not, it's just the submarine will have a higher rating. So there's just too many rules to try to just bang in yourself. But like I said, we try to help with lessons learned throughout the industry to help the small companies, and we really do push the small companies. And we just tell them, don't try to do it all yourself. Become friends. We have a company out in Ohio. They never let anybody in their door. Even if you were their customer, they'd show you your equipment on the loading dock. They just were that forever. We went in there last year, and amazing company. They do amazing things. But the things I learned the most was how they deal with people, how they recruited people. They have recruiting videos that show people, okay, you want to be a welder? This is what your job is going to be like. They go through the life of a welder for a day, machinist for a day, and they show that to the high school kids. And they have, for lack of a better term, they have bounties. They have anybody that's working there. If you bring someone else in, back in the day, it used to be you brought your cousins in, you brought your sons in, or whatever. Now, it's a little more challenging, but we give people money to bring a good employee in, and they give them more money if that employee stays for a year. And that's what we found. If they stay for a year, there's a very, very good chance they're going to stay for 5 years, maybe 30 years. But there's just a lot of good ways to skin the cat, I guess.
Yeah. Do you find that it is because of the security and the secure nature of these facilities and the projects that you work on, that it is more difficult to be able to bring in students to see these sites? That's one of the areas
Sure.
of concern that I have.
To get into a Navy nuclear site right now is almost impossible for me to get in. Never mind a 17-year-old student. They've cracked down on the security. It's just tough. With that said, there's a lot of events that people can go to that actually you can at least see the ships and maybe get a tour of the ships. They do commission ships all the time. The USS Kennedy is coming up probably next year or the year after. That's a monster aircraft carrier. They'll probably have 20,000 people tour within 2 days, and they'll all enjoy the tour. But getting into a nuclear power plant right now, that doesn't happen. They don't want you. They don't want to show the kids what they do, just because of security. It's too tough.
Yeah. Go ahead, Blair.
John, you're right, but I'll tell you that there's more and more information being published, or that's out there through some of the organizations that these NEI is a utility organization, so they train or teach or have things available online or through things. And I've worked with DVIRC before. They're going it alone, like John just said. They're trying to start in promoting it. I would recommend that they reach out to companies, the Submarine Industrial Base or National Defense Industry or NDIA, and try to partner with them, because getting into Electric Boat or Newport News or whatever, if you're not already a vendor, it's not impossible, but it's just onerous, the paperwork you have to do, and then to prove yourself. Partner with somebody who's already in, work your way in, and then you become, part of the supply chain. You don't have to do the cost of the paperwork and things like that. So
That's good advice. And then finally, Nancy, a couple of ideas that I have come across in my time here, and I may look young, but I've been in for 9 years now, and at least I think I still look young. Apparently there weren't any laughs around the room, so no, I'm just kidding. Okay. But I wanted to ask you, a good friend of mine had said, why can't you guys just do like 3D virtual recordings of some of the places, so that students that maybe are in, urban communities or elsewhere, maybe even in rural communities, that wouldn't necessarily have access to see these types of places or job career paths for them, where they could more easily access them. And so with that said, do you think that that is something that the state should help to support or fund, or maybe initiate, and then keep the database of virtual curriculum, if you will, to make it available to teachers and students, along with maybe even separate of that, an entire platform where companies like yours and educational, career, and tech institutions, and then even the students themselves possibly, be able to have a platform to literally connect on with all of you. And do you think that that's something we should look into, or?
Absolutely. It's just another level of workforce development and developing the workforce for major. Oh, God. Yeah, I'm a Leo. I forget I needed the mic. It's just another platform for us to open our eyes to what major companies and defense contracts and all the contracts that the state and federal government do. I don't think we're involved in that hardly at all. So we can absolutely, if we don't know what you need, we can't help develop the workforce for what the jobs are. So that would be a great thing. About 15 years ago, I got a big pot of money, not big pot, that time 300,000 was a big pot, do you know what I mean? And we went across the state of Pennsylvania, and every workforce area highlighted the organizations and the companies they had in their area, and larger companies like that, so that we use that platform to show in high schools and to show kids where are the jobs, what are the skills, what are the educational requirements. This would only make it global rather than and national rather than local yokel.
All right. Thank you very much.
That would be good.
You want to
I'll help
comment
you if
too,
you
John?
want.
Okay,
I
thank
just
you.
want to add two things. Again, virtual reality is a tool we should be using. The younger, crowd loves putting on those goggles. They love, doing this. It's made for them. On the flip side, one of the coolest videos I've seen in the last year, and I presented this to the top brass at the Navy, it was a recruiting video for the Chinese Navy. I didn't understand a word they said, but it was the coolest video, and it was just like, man, I want to go on one of their ships. They just had, and it was funny, they show the sailor going home to his family and all happy, then they show him going on this warship and going through a battle plan and World War III starting. There's it was like a movie, and I'm like, this is so cool. Why aren't we doing this for our kids? And we could do the same thing for manufacturing. Make, Tom Hanks or someone needs to come out of the woodworks to do this. I know Mike Rowe does a lot of cool stuff, but we need 1,000. We need 10,000 Mike Rowe's to promote industry. To help us out, help get those kids interested in what we're doing.
Right.
Again, making it cool. I mean, I've gone from, saying blue-collar workers to skilled workers, because that's what we're creating is kids with skills that can have those skills for life. I mean, I tell people all the time, I go to the beach, I look at who owns all the beach houses. It's the electricians, it's the plumbers, it's, and the old joke is the doctor's looking at his bill and says, to the plumber, he goes, oh my God, I don't get that much an hour as a doctor. And the plumber says, yeah, I didn't get that much an hour when I was a doctor either. It's just, the trades are where it's at. We just, like you said, we need to make it cooler for the kids to come this way.
Absolutely. Cool.
Chairman McKenzie.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to all of our testifiers who are here today. I've really enjoyed the conversation thus far, and I think it's a really important one, not only for our communities and our economic vibrancy. I mean, I have talked for years about trying to make sure that when we talk about having a positive business environment or climate here in Pennsylvania, it's not just about the tax structure, it's not just about regulation. That third and really important component is a workforce. If you don't have the workforce, the businesses aren't going to come here, they aren't going to expand here, they're going to go elsewhere. And so I'm glad we're making sure that that is included in this conversation and highlighting it as an important piece here. Also, for a long time, I have talked about what we can do to grow career awareness in our middle schools and high schools. And so I want to talk, Nancy, very specifically. You have a recommendation too, which you offer here, about growing the workforce pipeline through career and technical training and fully funding it embedded in the high schools. And so it's been disheartening for a lot of us. I think we all share this, that has diminished and declined in high schools over the years. LCTI is great. I serve on a board there. We absolutely love it. But so what do you envision, or what do you think we should be doing not to take away from that, but to add to that in the local high schools? And then what is the challenge to getting there? Is it just funding, or is it still a mentality shift that we need from the leadership at those schools, or what's the hurdle?
I think the mentality is going away. I think the stigma of career and technical education is evening itself out because of this, because of all of this conversation, and their parents are starting to hear from it, and we're talking the talk of where business and industry is and where the jobs are and who's earning the money. You're right. Something really cool, who's earning money, what are the jobs. We taught our children not to do what we did, to work hard every day, to get in there, and this is what I'm earning. I'm hiring workers that are earning almost as much as I am because that's what I have to pay. And I've been in the business for 40 years, so it's like, holy stromboli. Do you know what I mean? So career and technical schools are fantastic, and we're on them like roseoli on a baby. Make sure we understand what their equipment is, how can we get business and industry in there to take a look-see at do that, and make sure it's the right equipment. Can you donate equipment to the high school so that they have the same equipment that you have? That's another angle we've been working at a long time, to get the right equipment so they're being trained on the right things. We need more of it. They shouldn't have to drive 45 minutes to get to a career and technical training. Let's look at what skills we can teach within the high school for manufacturing. Math certainly is one of them. How has that become stronger? And what other hands-on training so that they can see it while they're in the high school, that they don't have to go somewhere else to do it? I mean, that's a big plan, but I think it's a plan. You're hearing the need. This is where jobs are coming from. This is where who's getting the money to create jobs through the Department of Labor and Defense and all of that. So
are
we need to
the
act
high
on that.
schools interested in something like that, or
Pardon?
not? Are the high schools interested in doing something
I
like
think
that,
they're
or not?
interested in something.
Okay.
Again, if I had to look at the biggest elephant to move in all the departments, it would be education. And I think that's for a reason. How are we making sure that we're embedding education in our students so that they can come out at least ready for something? Do you know what I mean? But still, I think the career and technical skill sets within it, they have to start teaching, because if not, I'm trying to develop a grade 13.
Sure.
All right, you graduate, now you still need skills training. So come on over and we'll teach you skills training.
So
and
is
work
the-
with these companies to
Is
do
the
that.
hurdle in the high schools that they believe they don't have the funding
Yeah,
specifically
definitely.
for
It's
manufacturing,
definitely
or the
funding,
space, or
and
okay.
it's like, all right, let's look at curriculum. Let's look at the curriculum. What's being taught that maybe could go to the sides, but not to the sidebar, but to the side, and look at it. Really will take a concentrated effort to look at curriculum. They embedded our employability skills curriculum because they knew employers were saying, hey, these kids aren't showing up for jobs. They're ghosting us. They're doing this. They're doing that. They don't have a resume. They don't know how to put the words together. They're using AI. They're all those things. So this curriculum, and the one school district has 3,000 kids go through it already to understand that's an important role in getting a job anywhere.
Yep.
So, and it's not, it's not just, it's every student. Do you know what I mean? It's not just technically trained students. It's every student that we need to do a better job with.
All right. Well, thank you. Second
Sure.
question I have for you, and then one for Mr. Drunkenmiller. The second question I have for you, Nancy, you mentioned iTech. It's something I'm familiar with. Maybe you can share that with the rest of the people here. It was a great idea. Can you tell me kind of where it's at now and what results you're seeing from it?
I can. They have about 12 major companies involved in a pre-apprenticeship and that leads to an apprenticeship program. B. Braun Medical, and I have a very detailed report on iTech in your packets too. B. Braun Medical knew they needed another way to recruit and to look for a workforce. So we had been working with, they got a small initial grant from Bureau of Apprenticeship and Training, and the Workforce Board worked with them, and we still do, and the Economic Development Corporation worked with them. And they are charging employers to come into the fold of their apprenticeship program so that they are getting workers through a pre-apprenticeship that at our community colleges are providing. Then they're going into an apprenticeship program in the company, and they're getting hired, and they're going into an apprenticeship program. Therefore, they're creating their own workforce training program. That's what they're doing through pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship. But the pre-apprenticeship gets kids interested in it, and we need many more pre-apprenticeship programs on our training list to so that kids start looking at them and get some interest in them, and we need to market them in a better way, you know, on the whole at the state level. So it's really, really taken off.
All right.
So as a matter of fact, I even got a company today, Lafarge is very interested in joining the iTech program. So, and it's an award-winning program.
We'll keep going with it. Great idea, very much needed, so glad to see that it's getting some success there. And Mr. Druckenmiller, you just talked very briefly in your testimony about the salaried workers and the 130 hourly employees here as well. We talked about the wages and, you know, benefits packages, just ballpark, obviously not specifics that anybody could take to the bank, so to speak, but just generally, what are people looking at if they were to enter a field like this in terms of wages and benefits?
Well, I think from the manufacturing side here, you're probably, I mean, we have 8 different levels within our job classification system for the union guys, and you know, with an hourly wage, and we have a guaranteed profit share built into that as well, and our benefits package is probably one of the best around, better than even some of the hospitals in this area. You know, from a general perspective, you're probably between wages and profit share, you're probably around between $25 and $30 an hour starting out.
Okay, great. Well, I just wanted that out there. You know, these are good paying jobs with great benefits packages, as you mentioned. And so the importance of getting this right and building a workforce, you know, it's not just important for our economy and individual businesses, but here in the Lehigh Valley, we have an identity that is tied to manufacturing. And once you let that decline, it is so hard to reverse that. And so we need to make sure that we fill these holes with new students and applicants coming out of our all different programs, so that these businesses can stay here and continue to grow and thrive. And then there is the added element of all of you being in the defense industry and the importance to our country and our national security. So really got to make sure that we focus on this. I appreciate the attention of everybody here today and what we're doing to raise awareness and try to do everything we can to make sure that you all have the workforce you need to succeed.
I just thought of something. Thank you for helping me. I need help, you can see that, right? Okay, thank you. I wanted to say that in the Lehigh Valley, our manufacturing consortium, which we work with all the time, our manufacturing center, has a What's So Cool About Manufacturing. And we have a tremendous program where thousands of 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th graders come together to look at all your equipment, and we put it on display, and they come and they tour companies, and they go into the company and learn about it. So we need to we have to start at the 5th and 6th grade already to make sure that they start spitting out the right product that you need by the time they graduate. So that's another thing. The one thing I do have to say is right now we're seeing a huge competition between manufacturing and healthcare. Say in the Lehigh Valley, healthcare is 19% of our workforce. So they're like saying, hey, wait a minute, I need them, you need them. So even in companies, there's competition for where the workforce is. Yeah.
Can I just add to that? So my golf partner last year was a doctor. He was actually the head of the local UMass medical system. And I asked him, how's your bench? What's your depth on your bench? He goes, I have nothing. He goes, we have $50,000 jobs for clerks, basically, to data entry. We can't fill those. And it just gets worse as you go up to LPNs and, you know, doctors. I mean, it's tough to get doctors to fill hospitals now, you know, and that's a huge shortage. When the pipeline project wanted to come to Boston, I actually told them, I'm not sure it's the right place for you guys. And they were shocked. And I said, you know how many vocational schools are in the city of Boston? They said, no, you know. I said, take a guess. They're thinking, I don't know, 12, 15, 20. There's one. Mm-hmm. And it's in a neighborhood that I'd be afraid to drive through at night. It's in a tough part of town. And and I asked them, I said, why aren't you training kids to be plumbers and electricians and, you know, skilled labor? And they said, because the medical and the insurance and the finance industries suck up everybody. There's nothing left. So we're very lucky that all the suburbs of Boston have some fantastic vocational schools. I mean, kids are banging at the door to get into these schools now, which is what a difference from when I went to school. I remember, you know, I went to a big school, and we had 800 kids in my high school class, but we had 200 kids in the vocational school. So we had great football programs. We had a lot of kids to pull from. But, you know, and I always wondered, why are the kids going to those voc schools, you know, programs back then? And a lot of them were the troublemakers. They were the kids that couldn't show up on time for school and stuff like that. It's no longer like that. The schools that kept their voc schools open, and a lot of them got rid of their welding program, but they're coming back, they are very popular now. They're actually more popular than the regular high schools. You know, people are banging to get in because someone's trying to realize, hey, they can get a good job right out of high school.
Yep.
So,
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you all for coming today, and I am going to address the elephant in the room. As a member of the House Education Committee, I still see amongst colleagues and people in Harrisburg that there is a stigma still to career technical education. This year we spent $17 billion on educating in our public school system, and very little of that money will be coming down to the career technical schools. Because as I understand it, the funding goes to the school district, and then the school district, that local school board, decides whether or not they want to fund the career technical schools. I have 3 fabulous county career technical schools right here. The Bethlehem area VOTEC is phenomenal. They right now want to expand. They have the space, they have the students wanting to come. They're offering all kinds of fascinating career opportunities. And one of the local funding school districts, as we speak, it lies within my district, is reluctant to give their money to funding Bethlehem area VOTEC. And it's the school district where I actually live and pay taxes, but there is still a kind of an elitist attitude that we want that money to stay here for the K through 12 students who are traditional students. And I have pointed out to them, the next time you need an HVAC person or someone to fix your Mercedes, you're going to be sorry that someone doesn't have those skills. Because it's not just a matter of, it's a matter of respect for everybody in society. So I'm very troubled by it. I'm not going to speak up at the school board meetings, but we see in Harrisburg that our universities have lobbyists. The community colleges have lobbyists, but of course the district schools have the teachers union lobbying for them. Nobody is really lobbying for the career technical education area that I am aware of, because the money goes to the district school, and the district school, I have heard people say, the VOTEC teachers have told me, that they go to the school board meeting to ask for money to buy like maybe a big truck that the mechanical students, and it's an outrageous amount of money, of course, but the local school board will say, well, we want a football field instead. And it's their priorities, and they think, you know, more kids go to the football games than are going to become mechanics. So I wish that there was a way that you could get some kind of inroads into speaking directly to the, you know, I don't even think nowadays, when I went to school, there was like a guidance counselor that would guide you into a career. I think now they're doing more mental health kind of services, but if you could, you know, get the ear of the guidance counselors and get them to go to the school board to tell them that this is a career path, a viable career path for so many of their students, because the traditional student who graduates with just a high school diploma cannot walk out on graduation day and have a paying job and become a Pennsylvania taxpayer. And I have toured all of my VOTEC schools, and those kids are learning incredible skills. And every year I go to the Skills USA signing ceremony where those kids graduating, they already have jobs. They're going into the military. Some of them are going on to higher education, but they have learned valuable skills at this career high school level. And there are waiting lists in Montgomery County. There are tons of kids that want to go to the Montgomery County Career Technical School, and they can't get in because lack of space, because they just don't have the money to expand. So I like the idea of a local industrial training center. I think the funding has to be separate for this kind of career path and take it out of just the general education funding, because of course we know that they need all the money. But this is a very positive school choice option. And I want to thank you all for helping our local economy here. I live 6 miles away. I never knew you were here, which is kind of a sad thing. Maybe the Department of Defense didn't want me to know. But I just have so much respect for all of you working in this area. And again, it's just a matter, you know, when kids learn skills, they get self-esteem. And so it makes them be a better human being. So thank you. Nancy and I have talked about this till we're blue in the face. But thank you, Nancy. And thank you all so much for coming today.
Thank you. Chairman Heffley.
Thank you, Chairman Kale. Yeah, not just to rehash everything, but we do spend an enormous amount of money on education in this state, and it could be better directed. As somebody who is that third generation person, I actually worked before the steel company shut down for a company that recycled hazardous waste over here in the back. My dad worked at Bethlehem Steel for 32 years. My mom's dad, my grandfather worked at Bethlehem Steel, and many of my other family members worked at the zinc mill in Palmerton. But representing Carbon County, we still have a lot of mining operation there. We still have trains running. And every employer that I talk to is looking for employees, right? The hospitals, there's a nursing shortage. We passed how much legislation to, for loan forgiveness for nurses right after COVID. We have a teacher shortage. They're passing legislation to pay student teachers now. While they're paying their colleges, we're paying them to student teach. Sore subject, but with all that said, the military recruitment is down. PennDOT is having a hard time hiring. Everybody's hiring. We are, in some senses, depopulating. We need more babies, and hopefully young families are telling me that they can't afford to have more babies, so it's an ongoing issue. With all that said, one of the things that I've noticed is children, or say kids, 16 years old, when used to be 16 years old, you got your first job. I started, working on tree farms when I was 13 or 14 years old, helping load Christmas trees on trucks to make some extra cash. But now it seems like the average age of that person getting their first job is getting older. They're getting 17, 18, 19. I'm talking some college kids are getting their first job when they get out of college. We have a shortage of dishwashers in the restaurant industry. We have restaurants that had to shut down 2 days a week. They used to be open 7 days a week because they just can't get in people. And these are people that a lot of young people used to fill these jobs. Is that something that we're addressing? Because I think you need to learn how to work. As important as it is to go to college, it's just as important when you're 16 to get that first job, learn how to punch a time clock, learn how to be on time, learn how to be responsible, and actually learn that work ethic. What can we do better to get young people into the workforce to not only make that extra money, but also to teach them how to become employees?
Well, I think that goes back to what we've been talking about here as far as having opportunities and programs within the middle schools and the high schools. Friends of mine, we joke around a lot when we see things going on. It's like, yeah, I wish I could go back to be a teacher in high school and do a common sense class, because some of these people don't know whether they're coming or going. And, I think getting to these people earlier and just introducing things like how to do this and how to do that, get them involved in real life situations, like learning actual skills that you're going to use in life, and just teaching things. And it's, again, getting them the exposure to it earlier, and I think that cascades on for the rest of their educational lives and then into their careers as they develop. But if they don't see it at home and they don't see it in school, what they're watching on TV is probably not going to help them gain that knowledge or that perspective. So again, I think it goes back to we're funding a lot of education dollars, and I think we need to fund more efficient education dollars, we'll say.
I had heard one time, and then I know we're running over here. When the Affordable Care Act was passed, it allowed young people to stay on their parents' benefits until the age of 26 years old. Out of high school, I went to Lincoln Tech. I have an associate's degree in drafting and design. As soon as I got out of Lincoln Tech, my dad worked at Bethlehem Steel, so I was covered under his insurance until that age. When I graduated from Lincoln Tech, I think I was about 20 years old, I had to get a job that paid for my medical benefits. And that's a driver, right? It's something that it used to be a lot of people took jobs, and maybe they weren't the best jobs because they had good medical benefits for their family. The easier we make it for people to not have to work to receive some of these benefits, the harder it is to get a workforce. And I'll just leave it at that. And I think it's across the board. The more generous public benefits are, the less we're going to have people joining the workforce.
The one thing we found in that question or that comment you had was, first they have to know about the jobs. They need a little more knowledge, and we need to open the screen that they look at every single day on what jobs are and how we're making it exciting and what the career pathway is and how they can get involved in it. The other thing is work experience really works. If you put a young adult on a job and they either like the occupation or they don't like the occupation, but they at least have had the experience of getting up, going there, doing that. And the other issue is parents. I started to make stickers that said, "Are you a parent that still has your child living in your basement?" They wanted to keep them longer with them. Do you know what I mean? So get them out of the house and into the job rather than still protecting them. Because our parents got us out of PDQ, right? As soon as you could, PDQ, get a job, bring some income in, Whereas the parents today didn't necessarily want them to do what we did and how hard we worked and what we did. So it became a little laxatorical where they would stay and all of a sudden they had families down there, So it's all that kind of issue to make sure we're getting them in and out fast as we can.
I have a quick thought. Why couldn't we make a merit badge for parents when they get their kids off the cell phone plan? We should say, "I did it last year." That should be something people should brag about, that their kids are out of the house, they're working, they're making an income. Stop putting the burden on parents or on the government. Put the burden on the kids. It was a sad day when my youngest son left the house because we had to figure out how to use the remote controls on the TV, and the internet, but it was worth it.
With that, I do think it is important that we work or put forth efforts to try to get children to work. And I know I talked to a lot of employers in Carbon County. We have tourism's our #1 industry, right? We have 3 great ski resorts. A little advertisement. We have Big Boulder, Jack Frost, and Blue Mountain Ski Area. We also have mining operations because of the anthracite belt in coal mining. We still build parts for fire trucks. And with all that said, when I talk to a lot of our tourism, and it's a great opportunity for turning 16 years old. My first job when I turned 16 years old, the next day I started at the Blue Mountain Ski Resort, and I got a ski pass, and I was washing dishes. I washed dishes, I mopped floors, I vacuumed floors. I worked every different level in my career. I drove truck, I became a manager. But to instill those values, and when that individual gets that first job at 16, but one of the things that when I talk to employers in our tourism industry, they're having a hard time hiring because federal and sometimes state laws make it prohibitive. You have to ensure that everybody at 16 years old has a break at a certain time. Well, when they're busy, the ski lifts are running or the kitchen's busy on a weekend, sometimes it's hard to do that. And they think, you know what, we're just going to hire, because now you have a lot of older people that are filling those jobs, people that are retired that are going back and working, to supplement their Social Security or lack of Social Security income. So I think, what else can we do as policymakers? Because all these other jobs are great, but you still need to start. Sometimes you get your foot in the door as an employee to learn how to work. So if there's ways we can make it easier for those entry-level positions to hire young people to get into the workforce, I think is key.
And then, so I have another question that I think we'll likely close out on. Could you, each of you, provide the legislature, obviously all of us here, but if there was one thing that you think that the legislative body should change or improve upon that could help our workforce development, what would you encourage us to do?
Well, I'm going to start.
Yes.
Break down the barriers for all employers or all potential employees to come into the workforce, meaning, hate to say it, we probably need to get rid of that marijuana law that prevents people from coming in. Every 18 to 22-year-old is smoking dope on the weekends. And guess what? They can't pass a blood test on Monday to get a new job. Now, would it be great to stop them from smoking dope? 100%. But they are. It's legal in so many states. So it's like we need to figure out how to deal with the laws that are in the books and get more employees. I mean, prisoners. A guy that went to prison for, forging checks or something like that. Okay, a lot of people aren't going to want to hire him because he has a record. We need to start thinking about, all right, how do we get those people back into the workforce? I mean, I don't want to see them, on a corner bench with a sleeping bag. I want to see them working in a factory. There's a lot of laws that we have out there that prevent some really good people from coming to work. We need to start thinking about, okay, maybe we should change some of those laws.
I don't know in laws, but I think I'm Polish. I have to be retooled each time to know to do that. I don't think it's the laws that we're working with. You know what I mean? But it's more the alignment, a better alignment between government and workforce development and economic development and community planning. I think your planning commissions across Pennsylvania are part of your workforce system. They're part of where we're going, what we're doing, how our economies look like, how the growth is going, how the bridges are, how all those facilities are being built, where they're being built. That's a major part of it. So I think looking at the big picture of where we're going, you've seen what we're talking about today, the end result. The end result is we need a better trained workforce in careers and technical and skills. So work from that way backwards rather than law after law, eligibility after eligibility, blah, blah, blah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I recall you mentioned flexible funding, so go ahead, Blair.
Sure. I'm going to say and I don't mind being on camera for this. I think it's time for people to start as politicians. I'm not sure where it starts. To have the political courage to look hard at reducing entitlements. I'm not talking about, because there's an enabling culture that's developed, at least in my lifetime that I've seen, where if, especially during COVID, it was, you could make more money by not working than working. I mean, I know things come up, but that's going to take, that's a major shift in thought, because you might run out of money to pay for some of these things. I have nothing to lose by saying this, so I don't mind it. Second of all, as far as education, you need to catch up to the reality of today, where teachers or the administration, I live in Delaware, and the administrations that are horrible. They waste more money at the teacher level, at the administration level. These people are making a very high salary and producing very little result. I'm talking about a measurable result, and children are ready for college or to do these other things. I don't know what the structure looks like, but guidance counselors, but it's time to get current with the reality of the world. All right, mental health is a difficult thing, but that's for parents to partially do and things like that. If we can restructure education, look at that, that would be you would have an immediate impact, I think, as far as getting the word out. All right, thanks.
Yeah, Blair, I think you stole my thunder there. So
Sorry.
I think it goes back to programmatic things, is looking at the schools where we are today, and we heard on many different levels where we need to go with the workforce. And there's a lot of things out there that aren't being taught in schools anymore. They're not even being taught in some homes anymore, for crying out loud. But I think as legislators, I would say to you, put requirements to the schools. That you have to teach certain things, and obviously we know what we need from a workforce. We don't need them. We don't need teachers teaching things that parents should be teaching at home. Some parents may not agree with what's being taught in every single school out there, and that's never going to be the same thing. But we shouldn't have touchy-feely things being taught in school that parents are going to be teaching at home. Again, useful skills-based teachings, and again, obviously the math, reading, writing, all that kind of stuff. But again, we see where things are going with what we're doing. We still need some lawyers out there. We still need some doctors out there, but we need plumbers. We need HVAC guys. We need welders. We need guys to actually, and girls, obviously. John, you hit on the where the girls at. There are initiatives out there to address the demographics. I mean, we'll walk through our facility and look at the demographics of my workforce. There's certain aspects that I'm missing, and I need to figure out how to get those in here. So demographics and programmatics of the school, I think, are the two things that I would focus on if I was in your shoes. Thank you.
Thank
I
you
had
very
one
much.
other comment, please, if you don't mind.
Sure, real
I
quick.
just wanted to get this in as far as laws are concerned, that like I said earlier, we see more people going into the Department of Public Welfare office than we do walking into the career links. If there's any law you can do to require them to come through the workforce system. I go upstairs, and it happens to be in our building. I go upstairs and I keep marketing jobs to them, saying, hey, we have a workforce center down. I don't have people go up and market jobs to them to say, career link, come on down and get a job. They're able-bodied people. I see them every day, and it gets me crazy. I want to make sure I'm taking that population and putting them to work. Help me, Rhonda, really, on that. That would be a
On
big
that
help.
note, thank you so much. And our chairman is here, I'm sure, to close things out for us today. Thank you again to the panelists.
Thank you, Martina. And this has been a wonderful hearing. We have a great panel here. Something that I just observed as I was listening to this is you all work in the business side, and I think of the steel industry, and my mind's in Western Pennsylvania, but I'm sure you all could connect it as well with what I'm about to say. But the reason why Carnegie Steel turned into U.S. Steel started was because there was demand for the product, right? In fact, he named his first big plant Edgar Thomson, which is still operating. And Edgar Thomson was the president of Pennsylvania Railway. And because he wanted to sell steel, iron, then steel, to Pennsylvania Railroad, he named the plant after the president and got the contract. That's where Carnegie worked before he started his own mills. But there was a demand for it, right? And one of the frustrating parts about us in Harrisburg and government in general is we don't really follow the laws of economics. And what I mean by that is our budgeting doesn't necessarily follow what the demand is. And we have been hearing across the Commonwealth for the last 2 years at the policy hearing about the need for more people in the trades, the need for more welders, the need for all these other things. Yet, when you look at our state budget, on career and technology, we spend, $143 million, which is no, small amount. But compared to higher education, what we spend there in the billions, I have not run into an employer in the state of Pennsylvania, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that has told me I need another philosophy major. I need another. I haven't heard one say I need another BA. We've heard about certain technical fields that we need, engineers, stuff like that, but we don't actually follow the demand in Harrisburg, and that's something that we have to change. Hearing these types of conversations, so I appreciate you all putting these issues before us and letting us hear more about it, because I think we all need to hear more so that we are meeting the needs of Pennsylvania employers, and that's really what this is about, is meeting the needs of Pennsylvania employers so that our constituents can have family-sustaining jobs, stay here in Pennsylvania, and enjoy life. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Representative Flood to give some brief closing remarks, and we will close it from there.
Thank you. No. Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to close out by saying thank you so much. We've had just a lot of robust conversations here, some great ideas that we were talking about, and I look forward to working with our colleagues here. Thank you so much for being here and supporting us in this hearing today on how we can keep the momentum going forward with manufacturing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Flood. Great job. Our next policy committee hearing takes place Monday, October 1st in Harrisburg. Actually, it's Tuesday, October 1st in Harrisburg. We'll be discussing PJM's capacity auction and what must be done to prevent blackouts by 2030. Until then, this committee... That's right. This committee is adjourned. We should have you come testify for that, too.